Welcome, I'm Ryan Hicks, and this is Modern Business, the podcast to learn from franchise business leaders and explore new business technology. Our community is about sharing knowledge and tools that help us achieve our goals in business and beyond. Thanks for being here, and welcome to Modern Business. Hello there, and welcome back to Modern Business Podcast. Today we have a special guest on. We have Barb Moran, who is the co-founder, the chairwoman, and the CEO of Moran Family of Brands. She's been on the board of directors since Moran Industries' inception in 1990, and she's been the chief executive officer and president of Moran since 1999. In 2010, she was appointed chairwoman of the board of directors. And she also serves as the founder and managing member of More Property Development. She's very, very respected in all of the business that she's done, and it's a pleasure to have her here on the podcast. If you're not familiar, Moran Family of Brands operates a few different brands, including Mr. Transmission, Milex, Altamir, and Barb is looked at as someone who knows what she's talking about in regards to transportation. So it is very exciting to cut over here and momentarily to my conversation with her, because her and I chatted about the future of transportation, which is a subject that is fascinating to me. She and I were actually chatting at a couple of different franchise shows in the recent months. And I said, Barb, we have got to do a podcast. And we got into a lot of subjects, of which I will let you listen to, but it included things like, what does the future of the car and transportation industry look like? There's a lot of different topics like flying cars and all this wild stuff. And then we got into some very interesting topics that you must listen to around vehicle data. Listen to it. It is really, really good. And then we ended up on some topics that are near and dear to Barb's heart, and she and I will probably be doing another podcast on those topics in the near future. But I really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. You enjoy it as well. And here we'll go ahead and cut over to my conversation with Barb Moran, and we chat about the future of transportation. Today we welcome Barb Moran Goodrich, CEO and co-founder of Moran Family of Brands, to Modern Business. Barb, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me, Ryan. I'm really appreciating being able to talk to you today, especially about transportation.
Yes. Well, the very first topic that I want to tackle with you is one that you're certainly an expert in, and it's the future of transportation. And we've got into some of these conversations at IFA in Phoenix, and in a couple of conversations since. We were just chatting right before hitting record here. But I knew it'd be fun to have you on, so excited to have you.
Yes. I'm excited to be able to talk about this. It's one of my passions in life is transportation and all the things happening within the transportation industry.
The first topic here, a lot of the futurists are predicting that car ownership will decrease over time for a number of obvious reasons. And we're seeing an increase, even though car ownership is slated to decrease, we're actually seeing an increase in the number in vehicles in operation. Can you kind of explain what that means and why that is?
Yes. So what the vision is and what they believe will be occurring is that there will be less car ownership, mainly because of costs involved, and also people feeling like they don't need to have a vehicle at all times, especially those that are going to be living in urban areas, and it seems that the millennials are more apt to be in an urban area for a longer period of time than they used to, and so they don't have the need for vehicles as much as they did in the past, because there's many avenues of transportation. So the thought is that vehicles will be needed at certain times and not all the time, and people will not want to house those. And the reason there's a thought that the number of vehicles on the road will go up is because, number one, the population is going up, and number two, what the thought is that there will be areas where you can rent vehicles. You can have vehicles that will, like the zip cars that you have today, but there will be a larger amount of fleet vehicles out there, and in fact, the manufacturers are looking at this avenue as having housing and storing their own fleet of vehicles that will be accessible to anyone to be able to utilize, just like you would with a zip car. So it's going to be that there's going to be more vehicles, but less actual in vehicles owned by individuals. At least that's what the thought is.
If you also look at other industries, the largest, I wouldn't necessarily say hotel operator, but operator of booking rooms now and in the future doesn't even own any of the rooms. The largest taxi company doesn't even own their taxis. So there's definitely that trend. But vehicle-wise, it makes perfect sense, especially with rising population, why that's happening. Another thing that's happening is the average age of the vehicles have risen over the years, and partly because cars are more expensive. They're built to drive farther and all the rest, which is what you just got into. But the forecast for the average age of cars are actually going to be rising. So how do you interpret this for the aftermarket automotive and repair industry as a whole?
Well, okay, so I feel that there is going to it's a benefit to the automotive aftermarket because that will give them more access to repairing vehicles, and also there's a difference between vehicles that were built in 2002 versus vehicles that are being built today in 2018. And the difference has a lot to do with vehicles being able to communicate with each other in telematics and also having the electronic ability. So a lot of those vehicles, they'll still be on the road, and they're going to need to be adapting to that. That's an opportunity for our facilities to be able to add those components to the vehicles, to be able to have it adapt to being a vehicle that's communicating with other vehicles, and also having those sensors on it to be able to know where it is on the road. So in that aspect, I look at it and say, okay, it's a win-win for us. Now, I do think that there's going to be a transition at a certain time where the vehicles that are, more the electronic and hybrid, there's going to be more of them on the road, and they will continue to last longer. I mean, they're looking at, right now, it's 11.8 years is the average age of a light vehicle, and I believe it will continue to go up. The vehicles have become much more precise in how they are being built, and they're being built in a manner that allows them to be able to have well over 200,000 miles put on them. So I think it's a win-win for everyone, and especially, like, for instance, I keep my vehicles. I'm not one I don't trade in vehicles every 2 years. Never been like that. I grew up in automotive aftermarket. We bought used cars more often than not, and once you get past that payment period, it's a win. I'm going to say this word again. It's a win-win for the person that owns it, because because you now start utilizing that vehicle, and you're getting your return on your investment finally.
Yeah, so. And I think another opportunity and win-win, if you look at what that means for your particular family of brands, you have technicians on site. And if you look at the technician forecasts, as I was doing a little bit of prep work and researching, that's projected to increase by a massive amount. Some say 7.5 by 2024, I think, is the statistic, and others are saying much higher. But there seems to be a big skill gap that exists, which will actually create an opportunity for trade-related and vocational-related education. So how are you thinking about that, and how are you addressing this, and what opportunities do you think that presents?
Well, this is one that I think that we all need to wake up and realize what is happening here. We've had the last 20 plus years, we have had the reduction of vocational training in the high schools, and we've had an increase in students being pushed to being white collar, as they say, or behind the desk, or not getting dirty and not using their hands in the way that they used to. And so we have had, over the years, more going off to college, even if that's not what they're wanting to do, even if they don't finish college, but they're being pushed in that direction, and they aren't walking out of high school with some type of skill set in the trades, and they're not going into the trades. And it has a lot to do with what they're being taught in school, how they're being guided in school, through the guidance counselors or through their families. And so what's happening is it's not just in the transportation industry, it's in the trades. Yes. Overall, yes. That there is a reduction. And as Mike Rose says, one day if you don't watch it, we're going to be paying $3,000 to have a toilet repaired. And if not, we're going to be going to the bathroom out in the backyard because we don't know how to fix these things. And we have to start going back to the basics. Number one, we need to put the vocational aspects back into the school system so that if someone gets out of high school, back in the day, like my father, they could go work in a factory. They could go work as an apprentice and under electricians, under plumbers, yep. Under mechanics, and that needs to come back. That needs to be back on the table for these individuals, especially those that don't want to be behind a desk. They don't want to be selling. They want to be working with their hands. And the most interesting part of this too is, more often, those that have been in the trades or are in the trades have become small business owners. At some point in time, they go off and start their own business. Yes. So we, here at Moran Family of Brands, what we are trying to do is work with our franchisees in educating down to the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts, talking to the parents, talking to the schools, trying to get out there we actually have developed a internship program where if someone's in high school and they're interested in automotive and they want to see what that environment's like, they can spend time at one of our facilities and learning. And then there's also the internship program that is where after they're already in school for the vocation, that they could come work in the facility and learn the trade. So more like an apprentice type of structure. So we are offering that, and our franchisees across the country are very excited to be able to help in being a part of that. And I know that there are other areas of trades where this is also being offered, and it's really scary when you think about it, because what are we going to do if all of a sudden one day we don't have people to repair various things within our homes and also within our vehicles? So they're looking at a 7% increase in need. Not just that it's a vacancy, but in need. And then what was calculated was that there's also going to be an additional increase due to the amount of individuals leaving the trades. And in the automotive arena, from the age of 40, I think it's 45 and up, 28% of the technicians out there are age 45 and up, and only 2% of the technicians coming in that are age 18 to 24. Only 2%.
That's wild. So whenever you're talking about this, I'm just envisioning this literally touches like most industries, and so you have two core problems with it. One is a kind of the educational gap in the modern day university system that exists in terms of just a macro. There's a lack of awareness, and we're kind of cookie cutting people to be focused on not necessarily things that is suited for everyone. And then the second is there's a lack of the vocational and trade focus, which back in my father's day, for example, he went into trade school and became a mechanic and then worked his way up. And now he's up in Gulfstream, which is a massive, great organization and aerospace. And there's not really a focus like that today. We're putting kids on tracks, and when they get out of school, they have no clue what they want to do or even of the options available.
Right. Now, we look at the fact that we need engineers, okay, but the engineers need mechanics to be able to build what their designs are, and that's where we're having the loss. And the thing is, I think that parents, I go back and think, I'm a parent, and my kids are now in their 20s, and I think about it. My daughter did want to learn a trade. She wanted to become a fashion designer and learn how to sew. And I had said, okay, well, that's great, you could do that, but I also would like you to make sure you have a business management degree. And she did. She ended up graduating with both degrees, and it worked out well for her, okay? Now, I look at with my son and my father, they're more wanting to work with their hands and their minds in a different way. And, I wish that they had those opportunities, my son, at least in high school, to be able to dabble in that where he was working with his hands more. And so I think about, we need to talk to the parents and let them know, first of all, the trades, many people I know that have been in the trades, work in the trades, make very good money. We're talking six figures, and then they're the ones that say, hey, I don't want to work for somebody else. I want to work for myself. I'm going to start my own, business and become my own plumbing company, or I want to become my own electrical company. They are, they bring on employees and they pay themselves well, and they have a good life for their families.
Yeah,
and they
also,
get to.
And also the trades become more attractive because it's not just physical labor and you're fixing widgets and cranking the same thing out over and over. I mean, you're talking, there's a lot of technical training that needs to go into it, so it's more attractive and higher paying.
Absolutely. And that's why, people say, oh, well, in the automotive aftermarket, they go, oh, well, that's a mechanic. They are no longer mechanics. We don't refer to them as mechanics. Mechanics repair mechanical aspects, machinery. Our individuals that work for us are technicians. They are dealing in computers, they're dealing in sensors, and they're dealing in diagnostics that is not just going and looking at a part and saying, is this a good part or a bad part? Yes, they do need to have that skill set, but they also need to have a skill set that is along the lines of electronics and computers and diagnostics. So
absolutely.
Yeah, they've transitioned.
Troubleshooting and all of it, yeah.
Absolutely.
So the next topics, I think we can chat on this for a while, but the next topic is really the juicy one that I'm interested to get into the weeds of here is vehicle data. And there's a quote on a video, I think you actually shot me over the video, yourcaryourdata.org. And the quote says, by the year 2020, 90% of vehicles will have the ability to transmit real-time information about the vehicle's condition and about the owner's driving habits. 90% of vehicles will have that ability by 2020, and a lot of the vehicles, especially the newer ones today, already have this, actually. I think all of them do. So talk about what that means and kind of how you see this now and how you see this playing out.
Well, this is one of the things that I try to talk to people about on a regular basis because this is big. Just like we've had with Facebook and social media having taken in, shared our private data with various companies, Cambridge Analytics, I think, is one of them. This is happening right now with your vehicle. And it's interesting because people don't realize that what this means. This information, if you have a new vehicle, 2000, let's say 14 and up, your data is going back to the manufacturers. Now, what is happening with that information? It could be shared with your insurance companies. It could be sold and shared to other insurance companies. It could be sold and shared to anyone that the manufacturers actually decide and choose to. And what the manufacturers, there's actually right now legislation going back and forth on this because we feel, along with the ACA, the Automotive Care Association, they feel, and we feel, that data is your data, and it does not belong to the manufacturers. The manufacturers are saying, oh, no, it's our data because we're the ones who built the car, and we're the ones that, created this, computer system and all this technology, so therefore it's our data, which is not true. I mean, just because, you utilize Facebook doesn't mean that they get to own your data of what you're looking at and what stuff you're sharing out there. And that's one of the things that's been coming up right now with social media. So going back to this is the same thing. And this data is tracking where you go, how fast you drive, how fast you turn, how fast you slam on the brakes, so if you are slamming on the brakes, how close you get to other vehicles when you're stopped. It also is tracking violations. And now, let's say that, okay, when you say violation, well, maybe you're speeding. Okay, maybe you're going 5 miles over the speed limit. And the other thing is, too, is that there's sensors on the vehicle. Now, the sensors on the vehicles at times do need to be updated, and they need to have sometimes repairs or replacements because just like I have a vehicle that is a 2014, a 15 actually, and it repeatedly tells me, it goes in and will start telling me that I'm off the road, even though I'm on the road, in between the lines. And the first time it started happening to me, I went back to the dealer and said, what's going on? And they said, oh, well, it just needs to be updated. And they did an update, and everything was fine for about a year and a half. And all of a sudden, this past 2 weeks ago, it started doing it again to me. So now think about that. It's telling me I'm off the road, but I'm not off the road. And at one point, it actually told me I needed to pull over and take a rest. And I was laughing because I'm like, I'm not off the road. So if that data is getting collected, and the manufacturers now have that data, and they've decided to sell that data maybe to my insurance company, what's the next thing that's going to happen? Are my rates going to go up? Are they going to decide not to insure me again because they think I'm a hazardous driver? What if I get in an accident and they decide, without any proof of what was going on other than how the vehicle was driving at the time, what if they decide...
And what the sensors say that could be faulty that you just pointed out. Yeah.
Right. Could be faulty, and they'd say, you know what, we're not going to cover that claim because you have been driving erratically lately, and you were driving erratically at that point in time. That's a problem.
That's a big problem. What is the industry at large doing to address this? You mentioned there's some legislative proposals and ideas going on. I think there's something called the ACA and with storage facilities. So what could be some possible solutions to this? And then also what can people do to get more actively involved or aware of it? But what do you see as some solutions?
Well, so the first thing is people have to be made aware. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I know that, that is coming to light, yourcaryourdata.org. Go to that site. You can check out and see the videos on it and what this means. The Automotive Care Association is pushing for, informing legislators what this means, and we need more individuals behind this. We need to have people start speaking up. It's interesting how the media chooses and decides what they're going to report on. The fact is this is just as scary, if not more scary, than what has happened with our social media and our Facebook
But the media wants to get in reporting that because it's the juicy topic of the day with the whole Russian stuff and this and that, and there's ties within it. So now the media wants to put a spotlight on it, and it is interesting, right, like you said, how the media is shining the spotlight. But this is something that's equally or greater, and it's kind of looming, and people aren't aware.
Right. Right, they aren't aware. Okay, so let's say that you are driving the vehicle and you are going to different parts of, within a 200-300 mile radius of your home, and they decide that where you're parking your vehicle has too high of a crime rate, so therefore they're going to start charging you more.
Wow.
So we need to think about those things, and so that's where the ACA they're looking at is allowing individuals that are car owners to be able to choose where they want their data housed and to be able to choose who they want to share their data with. The car company says it's theirs, and we're trying to get the car owners to understand and start saying, hey, it's mine. That's my information. You don't have the right to it. I have the right to house that data in whatever facility I choose, be it the ACA or maybe one of the auto parts facilities. They're looking at actually developing their own data storage facilities as well. And I only want to share it with the company that I trust to repair my vehicle the most, or maybe I want to share it with my insurance company because I want to get discounts.
Yeah.
Actually, Geico, I think, is already doing that. Or, no, Progressive. You know how Progressive, they have this thing where, you can get discounts based on your driving? That's what that is already. And it's just a device that's plugged into the vehicle. Well, okay, that's great for some people, and that's not great for others.
Yeah, but we, I should say, as the consumer, should be able to decide how that data is used and all the rest. So that's very interesting. There's active legislation going on, I would presume, right now on active legislation on Capitol Hill, et cetera. Is this at the early stages, or is this something that's been going on for a little while, or what does that look like?
It has been going on for a little while, and it needs to be more over the last year and a half. That's where the ACA has now started developing the website Your Data, your car, yourdata.org, and they're trying to get this information out there. I really feel that there needs to be more conversation about this. And I don't know how we get it out there to where the media says, actually this has the value and importance. I find it interesting that I get into the car now and I just happen to have something on my calendar saying I have a doctor's appointment, let's say downtown Chicago. It will tell me how long it's going to take me to get there. No, I didn't ask it. I just happened to get in the car and my phone pops up and says, oh, it's going to take you 45 minutes to get to this appointment and this is the route you should take. And some people will say, well, that's really great convenience. And from my perspective, it's like, wait a minute, I want the choice to decide if I'm sharing that data. You don't need to know where I'm going.
Maybe you want to share some of those things because you say, you know what, that is simple, but I recall the same thing. I mean, it's with the parked vehicle updates, and I get notifications, and it tells me traffic is light and you should leave, and that's happened for about a year and a half now. Sometimes it's convenient, but other times it's a little weird because I've even had it to where I don't think it was even in my calendar, but we should be able to choose that and be aware of it.
Yes. Exactly. Every morning my phone tells me how long it's going to take me to go to work if I leave at that time. And again, yes, you're right. There can be convenience there, but also, sometimes maybe I don't want you to know what doctor's appointment I'm going to.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Another interesting topic, just slightly switching gears here and just looking at some of the fun stuff that is talked about in the tech world, is you and I are having this conversation today. We're recording this call. If fully autonomous cars were a thing, and I don't know where you stand on that because there's a lot of there's legislative issues there, et cetera, but there certainly is technology for autonomous cars, and I think that we're on a course to one day that should be reality. But my car could actually be out driving for me and making me money if I wanted it to, because you've got, Ubers and all that. But you could literally have your car working for you. Do you think that we'll ever get to that day? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so my opinion on this is that, yes, we will have that day. And we will not have it worldwide in the beginning, because not every area of the world is ready for automated vehicles. There's certain things that are needed with the automated vehicles that we're looking at. Some countries are just now starting to get the infrastructure in place to be able to handle long, extended travel within their country. India, for example, several parts of Africa, they're still dealing with getting up to speed with fossil fuel vehicles that are not self-driving. So there's going to be more time on the table of being able to put the infrastructures in play to be able to offer not just automated vehicles, but also electric vehicles at a higher level than what we have currently. I know people are saying, by 2021, it's not going to happen that fast.
No.
Also, automation is reliant on sensors and reliant on computer systems. And as we can see in life, we all, majority of the people in the United States have either a smartphone or a laptop or even a desktop in their home or at work or wherever, and they're not perfect. They have failure all the time. Well, that's the same thing in a vehicle. So just because a vehicle may have automation does not mean you should be watching a movie or reading a book while the vehicle is driving down the road. Yeah. Because you have to pay attention, because the vehicle will continue to not be perfect. It's being built by imperfect people. So there's going to be mistakes, and there's also going to be where it needs updates. How many times I have a Surface Pro? Oh my gosh, every day, updates.
Well, we need to switch you over to the good side, away from Surface. I'm just kidding. If someone from Microsoft is listening, I'm so sorry, and I'm totally kidding. But when you talk about that, there's an interesting, not analogy, but there's an interesting scenario if you think about it. If you had the fully autonomous vehicles and you don't have to pay attention in driving, like, could it get to the point where it decides on, well, there's a parked car here and there's a person there, but the president of this company or that or some important person's here, and then this other person who's homeless is over there? Like, does the computer start making decisions like that? That's a very far-fetched example, but someone's programming, and there's just a lot of, I think that we can get more autonomy and better. You look at death tolls on the roads today, and they're staggering. So at what point can technology for sure help us reduce that existing, I think, is an interesting question. But so when you look at all of this kind of playing out, you think that it's a much longer game than some of the futurists are projecting, I would presume?
Right. Yeah. I'm looking at that we're going to be closer to 2030 before we're really having a significant amount, let's say the majority of vehicles or more than 50% of the vehicles being autonomous. Uh-huh. And it's going to take place in the United States at least. Yeah. It could be a little bit sooner, but you have to go back to the infrastructures in countries. You have to go and look at also what is needed in order to have the vehicle be completely autonomous. Now, I'm going to say that in an urban area, absolutely, it will come much quicker, probably 2025, where you're looking at, because the infrastructure is already there. But when you're talking about, a rural area in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, it's not happening. Okay,
maybe autonomous skis, but I'm just kidding.
Exactly, but it's because the infrastructure is not there.
Yeah. Well, look, there's a cool thing going on in Dallas. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I think the Perot Group is involved in it, and it's between Dallas and Frisco maybe, but they're literally working on a project for flying vehicles in between Dallas and up there. There's a lot of development. I'm talking about North Texas here, but there's a lot of development going on. So that's interesting and cool. But yeah, urban areas for sure will be built out much, much sooner than rural.
See, that's the thing. It's so cool because when I was younger, one of my favorite cartoons was the Jetsons. And being that my father was in the automotive aftermarket, I loved the vehicles, and I was looking forward to hopefully being able to have a flying car when before I exit this world. And it seems like we're getting closer and closer to it, and it's exciting. And I remember when I was little, I said to my dad, I said, well, what's going to happen when vehicles are able to fly with our business? And he said, whatever mode of transportation in whatever movement and structure, it's always going to need to have some type of repair at some point in time. It's about you changing what you're working on and having that vision for the future. If you're only stuck in that you've got to have, a drivetrain and four wheels, and you've got to have brakes and a transmission to be able to take this energy and move it out to the wheels, then you're never going to be able to repair whatever comes down the pipe in the future. So I'm all excited about it. I love the future. I look at it and say, how are we going to fit in here? And it's exciting. And there is opportunity, and there will be challenges.
Yeah, there's so much that I want to unpack there. The challenges, opportunities. There's a lot of both. But what do I'm sure you've looked at and seen Hyperloop and some of these other high-speed travel stuff. I think there's a high-speed bullet train being put in place between Dallas and Houston. It's actually not going to reach all the way down to Houston proper, but northern suburbs, yada, yada. So there's a lot of that going on. What do you think about that type of travel?
Oh, I'm very excited about it. So the Hyperloop, I look at, and I think that they're actually talking that it's going to be 2021 or 2022. That they will have actually a Hyperloop in Abu Dhabi. And I know that Virgin, Richard Branson's company, is looking at having one in Mumbai. And the one in Abu Dhabi, I think, is actually I think it was BMW was just working on the capsules and a redesign of it. I saw in a story, and I love to read about that stuff. And so I think that's going to be amazing. The only thing is I don't know if I want to be the first one in it. I'm accident prone, so I think I'm going to wait till everybody's got it just right, and then I'll go in. So
I agree with that. Although I have a really weird and odd desire. Before my time to exit this world, I actually want to go to space. But I have the very, very, very same theory. I will not be the first, nor the second, nor the third, nor the 10th. I kind of want to wait for the statistics to be on my side.
Right. Well, see, I'm not a real, wanting to go into space as much as I would like the Hyperloop, because I love travel.
It would be neat. It would be really cool to be able to travel, have breakfast in New York and lunch in San Francisco. That would do awesome things for, I believe, just for the local economies, for the country, and for the world as transportation evolves. But how do you mentioned Virgin Galactic has some cool stuff going. There's a bunch of groups, SpaceX and all that, but Virgin Galactic also has some high-speed transcontinental travel. They're working on the stuff out, in space and all that. But there's just a lot of interesting stuff going on in the transport world, maybe beyond the scope of the next 20 years or 10 years, but we'll see how quickly it evolves.
Oh, I absolutely, and I'm excited about it. And, it's interesting because you go back and you think of what was it like when, Ford first started transitioning a vehicle being built by just one person to an assembly line process, to where all of a sudden, instead of it being one person in a neighborhood or in a town having a vehicle, to everyone being able to have a vehicle. That's what's happening here. It's that same evolution happening, and it's so cool because we get to see this, and now maybe, we don't know what the future is going to be like 100 years from now, but we get to see this evolution occurring, just like, what was it, the not my parents' generation, but the generation before, that they're at the end of their era now, and they got to see this transition from horse and buggy all the way through to vehicles that actually can drive themselves. So
that's
amazing.
Very interesting topic that could bring everything that we've talked about kind of in the beginning to this back full circle. And that is this, that back in those times, number one, Henry Ford was a crazy lunatic for thinking that a car for the common man is going to become a thing. Then there was the whole legislative battle, and he proved that he can build this thing. Then there was a huge legislative battle over a few different things, and one of them was around, there was a big union, and they apparently had the rights to it, and this and that. And so there's about a 2-year just massive legal issue and challenge, and Henry Ford and his group actually went ahead despite it, and they ended up winning. But there's also huge legislative issues when you look at data. There's a gold mine there. There's some great things that can come from the outcome, but there's also some deep-seated issues that you brought up from the beginning. And so we're sitting kind of on the same point in history, just for the next generation, we face some of the same challenges. I think that's interesting.
Oh, it is. And I think about this. We could have been further ahead with vehicle automation and changes with technology if we had an open market with the information. And in fact, the Right to Repair Act, that's been a big push. And, we have some manufacturers that have not wanted to share the data on repairing the vehicle in the correct manner. And so there was legislation that had to be pushed.
Tools and data, yeah.
Oh, right. So what they do is they say, okay, now that they're forced to have to share that information with, a general automotive repair facility, because you can't have a monopoly and be forced to only go to one place for repairs, which, believe me, there have been some manufacturers that they had a motto, from birth to the grave. And they've come to realize that that's not if that's their mantra, then they're going to have a problem, because you can't have it that way. People have the right to go and have repairs done wherever they feel comfortable with and who they have faith in, and at the right price for them. And so that data has to be shared. But now, of course, they've made these special tools that cost a lot of money to purchase in order to be able to do the repairs. So it's, one thing after another. So it's like that in any industry, though. I'm sure the medical industry is the same way, and it's just going to continue on. And we just have to always make sure we're making the consumer aware of what's happening, so they can be a part of the voice and saying, "I'm not going to have it that way."
Yeah. And the great thing is about it's in the democratic world. And I'm sure the lobbies play a big component in all this. So that's a whole other topic. But at the end of the day, the voice of we the people should win, because we are a free market and people can take their business elsewhere. So you got to listen when you look at all this data stuff. If people have the awareness and speak out, then good things will happen. So that's what has to happen.
Right. Right, and that goes along with everything. You should have the right to where you want to have your data housed and who gets to see your data. You should have the right to be able to have your vehicle repaired where you want to have it repaired without it costing an arm and a leg. You should be able. You should be able to have the right to do what you want with your vehicle, as long as you're not harming yourself or anyone else.
Yep. So, transitioning over into the last two kind of final questions here. This is actually a topic that I would like to have you back on and us do a complete podcast on, because I think it would be fun. But you recently went and sat on a panel. You were at a conference out in Florida on the subject of women and family business. Tell us a little bit about that, because you have awesome and amazing, unique opportunities and challenges, and then also there's a lot of a lot of topic out there with women leaders and what it means and the support that you have and all the rest. But just tell us a little bit about that and how it went.
Well, first of all, it was exciting, and it was an honor to be able to speak and being on a panel with the family business. It's the family's business magazine is first of all how I heard about this conference, and what it is that it is about it's a family business conference, and so I spoke about women in family business. And one of the things that was coming to light is that there are more women that are going into the family business and also taking the reins and running the family business, even if there are, siblings of the opposite gender. And it has to do with their being allowed the opportunity in comparison to, 30, 40, 50 years ago, or even 20 years ago, as in my case. And more women are going into business now than ever before. In fact, there's been a significant increase, and I don't have the exact percentage, just in the last 20 years of women going into business. So this conference was exciting because I was able to meet many people that were 7th and 9th generation family business.
Wow.
And they were now being run by women. And it was just amazing. And one of the things I learned was that when you have a family business, you really need to put together what we call a family council. And in that family council, you establish what is the mission of the family with the business. Because too many times, a family business goes from one generation to the second, and the second generation continues to carry it forward, and many times actually brings it to a higher level and puts processes in place. And then it goes to the third generation, and it falls apart. What the saying is, shirt sleeve to shirt sleeve, or something like that, or short sleeve to short sleeve, I can't remember. Different sayings all across the world, and it's basically that more businesses by the third generation are no longer around. And the whole point of developing a family business is to be able to help elevate the next generation and carry forward the wealth. How do you do that? Okay, and that's the thing that we in business, because most businesses, if not all, start out as a family business at some point in time. So how do you carry that forward for the next generation and the generation after that? And that's where you bring in a family council to be a part of what is the bigger picture in business. So I had the opportunity to learn that, which now I at the end, they were asking people, what they thought of this conference. And I said, well, now you just gave me about 20 more things to do. So it was great, though. I loved it. If people are in family businesses, they're entrepreneurs, and they're thinking maybe they want to create this business as a legacy for their family, this is the place to go to be able to learn how you go about doing that. And it was exciting, and I was so proud to be able to be a part of sharing my experience as a woman, where my father was looking at, it was a male-dominated industry, and he was looking at my brothers being the ones to take on to the next generation, and it turned out to be me.
Well, you're a great leader. You're a hard worker. You're very well respected, and I want to get there. We could do a whole separate podcast on some other stuff, but the one last thing that I want to make sure that we chat about is tell us about how folks can find more information on franchising and across the brands that you own.
Well, they can go to moranfamilybrands.com or moranfamilybrands.com, and they can learn about all our different brands. We have Mr. Transmission, we have Milex Car Care, we have Multi-State Transmission, Dr. Nick's Transmission, Altamir Automotive Outfitters, which is a concept that tricks out your car, window film, automotive safety accessories, those items that are not in vehicles that are, maybe 5 years old, that they would like to have in there, such as, lane changing and sensors, devices, backup cameras. They sell that type of product, and they also do great jobs of window film. And then we also have SmartView Window Solutions, which is for window film in your home for protecting against UV damage and UV rays in the home. And, as someone that I've had skin cancer a few times, and I will tell you that is one of the things that you don't think about, and it's a topic that's on my mind, where I go, I got to do something about it because I have a lot of windows in my house. And so anyways, those are some of our franchises, moranfamilybrands.com. And also, stepping back on the vehicle data, what people can do is they can go to yourcaryourdata.org, and they can sign up for taking action on and getting information on what they can do to make their congressmen and their senators aware of the need to have this brought up in legislation, and making sure that they have control over their data.
We will link to all of the above. And Barb, it was amazing having you on. You're welcome back anytime, and we really appreciate it. Cheers.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for allowing me this opportunity. I love to talk about the future and cars, and it's exciting. And you and I, we seem to get on this subject, and we just go on and on and on. It's great. I love it. So thank you so much.
Next time we'll do it in person. Maybe we'll bring out a film crew, because we're going to be doing some modern business TV stuff. We can get a cocktail and just get into all types of topics. But always a pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Take care, and have a blessed and great day.
You too.